Hello and welcome back to the Braintree Town YouTube channel. In our second instalment of the 100-year history of Cressing Road, we will be looking at the many changes to the main stand. So make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future episodes.
When Cressing Road opened in 1923, there were no structures on the current main stand side. This photograph is of a crowd of spectators in front of the trophy presentation at the 1927 Essex Junior Cup final. The site of the current main stand is in the background. 4,900 spectators watched Rayleigh Town beat Holbrook Athletic 2-1. Here, a huge crowd have assembled on the grass bank on that side to watch the 1928 Crittall Sports Day. 3 of the current trees on that side of the ground can be seen. There was no fencing behind the banking to separate the football and athletics arena from the cricket ground on which the marquees are situated. That is where the training pitch is now. The only seats at the ground were in the 400-seat main stand on the Cressing Road side. That changed when in the 1932-33 season a major ground improvement was announced. A new grandstand was erected on the cricket ground side on the site of the current main stand. This seated 400 and brought the seating capacity of the ground up to 800 altogether. There were 5 rows of wooden bench seats in the new stand, 1 row more than its older brother, and it differed in several other ways too. It had a solid back wall and no end screens, and the roof was angled upwards with a front fascia panel. Somewhat imaginatively, the newcomer was given the title of number 2 stand. There are no good known photographs of the number 2 stand in its original position. This blurry aerial view from 1946 shows the presence of the stand opposite the 1924 stand on the Cressing Road side. There were plans at one time to move the stand back 6 feet, but that didn't happen. A major development was announced to the public in the Greenham newspaper dated the 30th of November 1946. The main stand, running parallel with Cressing Road, is to be enlarged to accommodate between 900 and 1,000 spectators. It will be done by dismantling the number 2 stand and grafting it in sections onto the number 1 stand. Work will start almost immediately, and it is hoped to finish the job in time for Tilbury's visit in the London League Cup on Christmas morning. Later on, when building permits are easier to secure, it is proposed to build an entirely new stand on the other side of the ground, with a boardroom for the directors and up-to-date dressing rooms for the players. The Supporters Club memberships, approaching 600, are keen to see these projects carried through as quickly as possible. Although we don't have a photo of the number 2 stand in situ, this picture does show one half of it just 3 years after it was moved to the Cressing Road side. Moving to the opposite end of the Cressing Road side, this press other half of the old number 2 stand, sitting to the right of the old wooden main stand. This is an Eastern Counties League game against Gillingham Reserves in the 1952-53 season. This view is from the inside of the number 2 stand in 1963, again after it had moved to the Cressing Road side. The 5 sturdy rows of bench seating can clearly be seen here. In 1998, this sketch of the number 2 stand was published in the book Braintreetownfc's FC's Cressing Road Stadium, a 75-year history. This is how it was believed to have looked just after it opened in 1932. The main stand on the Cressing Road side was destroyed in a storm in 1974. After that, talk turned to providing a replacement on the opposite side, and several attempts were made to erect very small shelters. This is the ground during the summer 1976 heatwave. A small, rudimentary and barely visible cover has been attached to the windbreak fence on that side. It was constructed by players and volunteers from the rotting remains of a portable building which was to have been a new clubhouse. It was held up by 3 thin supporting poles and fell victim to a storm in 1978. The green object in front of the cover was an upturned portable tin dugout that seated 3 people at most. It's impossible to see the same view in 2023, so at this stage we will pause and show a photograph taken from the same place on the old grass banking in 1992. Here we can see Tony Digby celebrating a goal against Marchtown United in March 1978. In the top left-hand corner, the small destroyed cover can just be seen, prevented from landing on the cricket pitch by the trees on that side. This cover was strengthened and doubled in size after winning the Eastern Counties League in 1984. This picture is from the final home game of the 1984-85 season against Ely City and shows the final touches being put to the overdue extension. This cover quickly became known as the Chicken Run. It was initially painted white before being painted yellow. It may not look like it, but this photo was taken on the day that Iron won the Eastern Counties League title for the third and last time. It was also the day of the Bradford fire disaster, and the celebrations were cut short when news came through on the TV from Bally Parade. Here is the Chicken Run in 1986. Its positioning between the floodlight pylons helps you to get your bearings. In front, the old cinder track is overgrown, and the current pathway in front of the current main stand is just visible on the left. This is the same stand 2 years later. The old windbreak fence was given a coat of lighter green paint under the cover, and there is still evidence of this behind the main stand. You can see the concrete base within the Chicken Run with one raised step. With the club experiencing great success in the 1980s, attempts were made to gain promotion to the Southern League. Plans were drawn up for the new seated stand that would be needed to tick the right ground grading boxes. The club were unsuccessful 7 seasons running because work had not started on the stand. Work finally started in the summer of 1989. The new stand cost £27,000. The first step was to remove the railings in front of where the stand was to be built and demolish the old Chicken Run. Some of the materials from this were retained and used in the extension to the cover that appeared at the clubhouse end. Deep footings had to be dug out for the frame of the stand. These were far deeper than had been anticipated due to complications caused with tree roots. The framework of the structure was then erected and concreted into position. Bricks around the rear support column prior to 6 brickwork supports being completed. Sections of horizontal concrete beams were then lowered into position by a digger, providing the seating. The gaps were then bricked up and screed with the steps and walls that separated the officials' area. Finally, the blue cladding for the roof and rear wall was fitted. The stand was produced so cost-effectively that other clubs expressed interest in having similar constructions. The directors involved with the project created a company called Tiami Limited, which subsequently built stands for Bedworth United, Wisbech Town and Haringey Borough. One of the last changes to the original brick main stand happened in 1996 upon joining the Isthmian League. A press box had to be provided in the main stand, and to create room for this, the front wall of the director's box was moved and the right side dividing wall partly removed. The new press area was then created by adding a brick tin extension to this area. 4 of the yellow bucket seats were used for this section. The 26 bucket seats in the director's box were upgraded to 28 blue tip-up ones. A painted sign that proclaimed directors and visiting officials only was moved from the front of the box to the back wall of the stand. The new arrangement reduced the number of seats available to the public from 266 to 248. This figure was too short of the 250 that would be required for the Isthmian League to give the ground the A grade necessary for Premier Division football. The stand stood in its original format until the 2006-7 season. Following promotion to the Nationwide Conference South, a number of improvements had to be made and more seats were required. On the 31st of August, the planning application for the essential improvements to the stand were finalised. The main stand will be extended by 16 metres, with the seating capacity increased to 550 blue tip-up seats, with the 1990 vintage yellow bucket seats being replaced. The director's box and press box were repositioned, and 6 wheelchair spaces were made available at ground level. Preparatory work for the stand extension started on the 18th of December 2006, with a target completion date of mid-March. A floodlight had to be removed and re-erected 3 metres further back to enable the extension to get underway. The small disabled stand structure by the clubhouse end corner flag was dismantled at this time. Most of the extended grandstand was open for the visit of Lewis on the 17th of March 2007. The stand was finished and ready for use in time for the home game with Welling United on Tuesday the 27th of March, with all seats in use. It was a future Braintree manager who scored the first goal in front of the completed stand, with Jamie Day converting a free kick for the visitors. 4 days later, before the game with Cambridge City, the enlarged stand was declared officially open by Brooks Newmark, MP for Braintree. All the groundwork had been completed, and on the 10th of April 2007 the club received confirmation from the Nationwide Conference that the improvements were acceptable and the necessary Category B grading had been achieved to allow them to stay at Step 2. Capacity was confirmed as 3,736, including 550 seats. The last cosmetic change to this stand was in the summer of 2020, when supporters painted the back panels orange and blue. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode shortly.